What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, and welcome into another edition, a Friday edition of MVP Games Live, right here on either Twitch, or you're watching on YouTube, or you're watching somewhere. I am joined, as I always am, with my beautiful co-host, Soapy Muffin.
Hey.
Soapy, how's your Friday going? How's your, as I'm calling it today, I put it in the tweet, your fun Friday going?
I don't know if it's been like fun, but it's been a Friday, all right.
Yeah, I'm bringing that back because I remember when I was a kid, it was always like in elementary school, they would have like, okay, for the last like hour of the day or half hour or 40 minutes of the day, we're just going to take you on the playground and let you fucking run around and basically tire yourselves out. And they always called it Fun Friday. So I'm like, fuck it, I'm bringing it back. We're having a fun Friday right here on MVP Games Live, where we love to talk about games, news, and everything going on with games, the thoughts that come into our heads about video games and everything under the video game sun. Today we got a little bit of I don't want to say a short show, but it's not a jam-packed show. Only two things on the docket today. But before we get into that, let's get through some housekeeping. Number one, join the Discord. It's a great time. Everyone from the Real MVP family in one place talking about the things that they love. You can join that by either YouTube, it's down below into the description, or ! Discord into Twitch chat. Gets that in the Twitch chat, that link for you. Number two, if you want to support us, patreon.com/MVPvids is the way to go. You can from $1 all the way from bronze up to the 25 platinum tier. There are 4 different tiers for you to support us from if you want to. You can also support us by throwing us a sub at twitch.com, which we are live every Monday through Friday, twitch.tv/MVPvids. And we're also on YouTube at MVP Entertainment. So go like, sub, follow, everything at both places so you're always tuned in to everything going on with MVP. And also thank you to our Patreon sponsors, Pat Hill and Philly Sean. Soapy, today what we're talking about, we're starting the show. We've got a news topic to start, and depending on how long that takes, because I was like, you know what, that topic could go for a little bit, but you know what, it could also be like a 20-minute, like, you know what, there wasn't much to it. So if there is time, we'll have a second topic that was actually brought up by you that's more of a retrospective gaming conversation about how ambitious games should be. But let's jump into the first thing we're talking about. It's Bungie, it's Microsoft, it's more rumors about Bungie being acquired by Microsoft. And this story comes from Games Rant. The follow-up to this was Bungie CEO. I want to say he's the CEO. Basically replied to the Game Rant's tweet and said, nope, that's not true. But still, you and I are going to talk about it. We're going to speculate on some rumors. And the article, if it decides to load, because I just opened up my tablet again, now it's a white screen. Thanks a lot, Google Chrome. Okay, there we go. So the article reads, while getting off to a very slow start in this console generation, Microsoft has made significant moves under the leadership of Phil Spencer to improve the Xbox One ecosystem. With the next generation of consoles arriving next month, Microsoft is looking to get a better jump out of the gates, and part of doing so is to show people the benefits of services like xCloud streaming, Game Pass, and of course, games. The company has already scooped up Bethesda to join its rapidly expanding Xbox Game Studios label, though more rumors have surfaced regarding another potential purchase possibly looming. Last month, rumors originated from the GamesBeat podcast began swirling regarding a possible acquisition of Bungie by Microsoft, ultimately reuniting the two after their previous work together on the Halo franchise. With a new expansion due out in November and a massive popular game in Destiny 2, the time appeared right to have the studio join its first-party lineup. However, the sources indicated that the deal fell through over Bungie's high price, which ultimately led Microsoft to turn its attention to Bethesda instead. While Bungie CEO Pete Parson called the acquisition rumors false, it appears that the acquisition rumors aren't quite over as many thought. Xbox Era did a bit more digging on the subject and has come across more information regarding a recently appointed officer role. In the U.S., when a company gets acquired, a person is added as an officer to the company who handles service of process on behalf of the corporation. All of these filings can be found online for the U.S. studios purchased by Microsoft, including Obsidian Entertainment, ZeniMax Media, and even Sony's purchase of Insomniac. What's interesting is that Bungie now shows the same corporation service agent listing as well. A strange thing to see for a company that has indicated it is not getting purchased. While the agent listing doesn't signify the parent company, the listing is filed under credit KYC, which is typically done in advance of a purchase. According to opencorporates.com, KYC is essentially the early stages of an acquisition where the corporation assesses risks and verifies the identity of the company. It's unknown if this will ultimately lead to anything, but for Xbox and Destiny fans, it's certainly, let's see, my thing reloaded. It's certainly worth keeping an eye on. And Soapy, the first question I wanted to ask you with this is, on the side of Microsoft, we know what this means for Microsoft. If they get Bungie, it's another studio in their repertoire of studios. More games coming to Game Pass, more games coming to xCloud streaming. It's a benefit for them. But for you, and this is the thing I wanted to kind of focus on with this, is what's the benefit here for Bungie? Because is it just that Bungie gets to work with Microsoft again? They get possibly more funding for games through Xbox. They get to use like Game Pass. They get to use xCloud, things that maybe they're not using right now. Like, to you, what's the main purpose and what's the main positive that Bungie would be getting by being acquired by Microsoft?
I think the main thing that they benefit from for if they go back to Microsoft is the fact of, you already said it, it's you get all that money. Like, I will always make the joke of, oh, this is Daddy Microsoft. It's like Daddy Warbucks all over again.
Yeah.
Except now this time it's literally, they just got money to throw out for days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where it's, for instance, I said the same thing when we talked about them buying Bethesda. Bethesda now companies now that are under the Microsoft banner no longer have an excuse to have like anything that's not like technologically caught up.
Mm-hmm.
And for instance, this also then gives Bungie a platform to extend like their player base, because for instance, Destiny 2 is already on the Game Pass.
Yeah.
But for instance, now it's like there are people who would never really play Destiny anyways. Mostly because, you hear stuff about Destiny 1 and how everyone at first was like, oh, this game's garbage. And then, by the end, people were like, oh, yeah, it's pretty good. It just took them way too long.
Because they didn't sell you a full game. That was the problem. They did not sell you a full game. They sold you a game, and then they were like, oh, well, you know what? It's half a game. In order to get the full game, you got to buy these DLCs that are the price of full games.
Yeah. And one of the things is I think that was a main contributing point of like what Activision wanted. Activision's very well known for like rushing games out.
Yeah.
And I think with Microsoft, that's not going to be the case.
Okay.
I think at this point you have a company who's more willing to work with you. You have people that now like they're going to actually be able to take time to make their games. They don't have to worry about like, oh, if I don't make it out by this date, I'm not going to receive as much funding as I want. Because, I made Activision mad. It's like, no, this time it's Microsoft could just not Sony, fuck me, dude. I don't know. My brain just decided to not work.
They could say like, hey, Bungie, you know what? Here's all the funds, all the resources that you need in order to make the game as great as you want it to be.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think is really beneficial to both sides, is because they already do have the chemistry together.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, Microsoft has to thank Bungie a lot.
Well, because like wasn't Bungie Halo 1 and 2? Or were they Halo 1
Halo
2?
what? Halo 1, 2, 3, and ODST and Reach.
Okay.
aka the 3 best Halo games in 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
My personal favorite Halo and ODST.
Yeah.
And then the one that people were kind of divisive on with Reach.
Mm-hmm. Like,
But
the other thing I think of with this is two things. First off, let's just talk about the acquisition of, let's say, Microsoft buys Bungie. Is the reason Bungie is saying, like, no, this ain't true, nope, not true, is because does Bungie not want to be acquired by Microsoft? Is it something to where we don't want to go to Microsoft because there's a fear of, well, okay, you're one of our studios, here, make Halo games. Like, your job as Bungie is to just make Halo game after Halo game after Halo game now. And is it something where Bungie's like, we don't want to just be Microsoft's Halo, basically, I want to say Halo bitches, but like, basically, yeah, the team that's like, you make Halo, that's all you make now. You do it very well, and you're going to make both of us money.
see, I don't think Microsoft would bring them back to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because if they wanted to do that already, they never would have gotten rid of Bungie to begin with. Because what they did was they ended up buying the Halo title from Bungie.
Good point.
And then they gave it to 343 Industries.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think they're ready just yet to move on from 343. Mm-hmm. Especially because it's, 343, like, the Halo games, or at least the new ones, like, they're divisive in the fact of, like, it's completely different gameplay than what we've seen in the previous Halos.
Yeah.
So you can get the people that are like, oh, hashtag not my Halo. All those. You get people who do that type of thing. And yeah. I think at this point, like, there's enough of, like, a working relationship. Because, like, the relationship between Bungie and Microsoft didn't end bad.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally just they agreed to part ways from each other. To where basically it was like, okay, yeah, your contract's up with us. And they didn't go out, like, basically shitting on each other, being like, oh, like, fuck you, you didn't do anything for us. Because, like I said, it's Microsoft needs to thank Bungie, but it's also at the same time, Bungie also has to thank Microsoft, because Bungie never would have got the opportunity to make Halo without Microsoft, and Xbox would be nowhere near as big without Halo.
Yeah, Xbox wouldn't be so big without Halo. And plus, like, you even look at Destiny. One of the big things that helped Destiny when, like, Destiny 1 was coming out is Bungie could put on there developers of Halo. To where it's like, we develop these Halo games. You love those games. You're going to love this game as well.
Yeah. And that's something to where, like, I feel like there's going to be people out there that are just going to shit on it and be like, no, that doesn't matter. But, like, I'm going to be brutally honest. It's one of those things of, I think right now, what we're probably going to end up seeing is if they do get purchased, I would not be surprised if we get, like, Destiny 3 in the works. Like, if we start getting Destiny 3 rumors.
Because right now, I have an article from, this is Forbes, and, like, whenever Forbes talks about, like, gaming or talks about, like, sports, I usually look at it and go, should Forbes be talking about that? Usually Forbes is talking about, like, people with money, right? But they have an article from February of this year. And it's titled, Bungie's new non-Destiny game sounds extremely non-Destiny, where a part of it says, this is from the listing for the art director for the game. Are you on a mission to create a game that bound players together into deeply invested communities? Would you like to work on something comedic and lighthearted and whimsical characters? Do you think a lot about how art impacts gameplay, how character design can enable fan cosplays, or how character poses and environments speak in different cultures around the world? So it's like people from that are using that art thing of like, oh, it sounds like it's different from Destiny. To me, that kind of plays into what I was thinking of if, like, with any game company that wants to acquire Bungie, especially like Microsoft, because to me personally, Bungie has been Halo and Destiny. I know there's other games, like I'm looking at their Wikipedia. I know there's other games here, But to me, Bungie has been Halo, and Bungie has been Destiny. Like, that's it. And it's like, if Microsoft brings them on, is it because they want to fund a Destiny 3? Is it because they, like, probably the most purest form? And yet again, I don't know if this is the right, like, if this is what's happening, because if this is what was happening, I don't know if Bungie would be like, nope, we're not selling to Microsoft. Is that if Microsoft's just like, we just want you to make games. We want your games for Game Pass, but we just want you to make whatever games that you want to make. We want to be able to help you. My kind of guess would be if Bungie is this hard of saying like, nope, we're not being bought by Microsoft, either two things are happening. One, they're being bought by Microsoft and they just don't want to tell us. Or number two is that they don't want to be sold to Microsoft. They don't want to be bought by Microsoft because they're afraid that Microsoft will just pigeon them into like a Destiny hole or a Halo hole or a Halo and Destiny hole, to where it's like, well, now we can't work on anything else because Daddy Warbucks with all the cash wants us to only work on these two games. And the other question that I mentioned that I had that I didn't ask you is, I wonder if, let's say this position that this Game Rant article talked about is true. They have the position that they usually bring on when a company is about to be bought. What if there's another game company out there, not Microsoft, that is in the works to acquire Bungie? And it's like, well, Parsons ain't lying. Microsoft isn't buying Bungie. It's this other game studio that's buying Bungie.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what company it would be, though.
Sony.
Like, that... Well,
And
the only thing is, though, Sony definitely would have fucking said something by now.
Well, the only reason why I would guess Sony is because of what we talked about a couple months ago, about them actively trying to bring games into their library. And I wonder if because to me, Sony's the only one I could think of that would want to buy. Like, Nintendo is just kind of sitting there doing their own thing. They'd be like, fuck it, you're not going to play Destiny on your Switch. We know that. They're just kind of doing their own thing. They just came out with Super Mario 35. They're kind of sitting there happy, to where I wonder if Sony would also be talking to Bungie to try to bring them on, which would then basically, in my mind, and this is what I would think Sony would do, is like, okay, you have Destiny, you have this new game coming up. They are now PlayStation exclusives.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony tries it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is, though, like, there's other studios they're most likely looking at. Because the whole thing is, a lot of people have questions with Bungie.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason why I'm thinking, like, Microsoft's looking at them and no one else, is because it's like, Microsoft has seen what that studio can do at its best.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things you have to look at it in the sense of, like, is Sony going to view a company that arguably has already fallen off as a valuable enough asset to want to spend money on?
Depends
like,
how much they think Halo, or depends on how much they think a Destiny 3 can make them, if it's exclusive to PlayStation.
Yeah, and see, the only thing is, I don't think Destiny 3 would make that much money as an exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because games like that do not ever sell well as exclusives.
Yeah.
And it's because the fact of where, like, Destiny has such a big player base because it's across all platforms, besides Switch, because the Switch is something else.
Can I throw out this curveball?
Sure.
What if it's Amazon's game studio? What if Amazon's game studio, yet again, a Big Daddy Warbucks and the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, the actual, like, true Daddy Warbucks in our real time. What if they're looking at it, Amazon's like, okay, we've just announced Luna, which is us trying to get into the cloud gaming sphere, which we don't know what it's going to be like, but that would kind of be like the same as xCloud for Microsoft. Amazon Gaming already has their own app, which would kind of be like, hey, we can kind of get into like your games can be on Amazon, which then could be on Steam. but they're already on Steam, so that's not a big positive. But could this be Amazon saying, hey, we want to bring in Bungie to be a part of our studio and acquire them to kind of beef up our department? Because right now for Amazon, the last game that they had come out was the Grand Tour game, which I believe was a game based off the British TV show with the three guys talking about cars. I think it was called Grand Tour. I think it's the show that Dave really likes and talks about all the time. The only two games that they've got coming out besides that is Crucible and New World. And New World we've talked about, and people right now are not too high on it, especially gameplay-wise. Story-wise and the ambiance of it looks great. Gameplay, not so much right now. So, like, could it be a curveball of, like, yes, we're being acquired by someone, but it ain't Microsoft? And could it be Amazon to beef up their studio and actually give their game studio some weight in the gaming world?
I mean, yeah, they're like, I think they could pull a move like that. Because once again, like you said, Amazon literally is ran by Daddy Warbucks.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't surprise me if, like, it's just, I think Amazon and Microsoft are the only two companies I can see going for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think with Sony, they tend to go for smaller companies.
Yep.
Because, like, for instance, Insomniac wasn't that big of a company before they bought it.
No,
like, they prefer to build up small studios.
Mm-hmm. Good point. That's a really good
Microsoft
point.
is more of the, we're just going to absorb these big ones.
Yeah.
Because, like, for instance, when they bought Rare was already an extremely established name.
Yeah, like,
and then they fucked up Rare with...
Rare made their name on the N64.
Yeah, with, you know, all-time classic games like Conker's Bad Fur Day, Crash Bandicoot, and games like that.
They weren't Crash Bandicoot, they were Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, yeah, that's my bad.
Banjo-Kazooie, Rayman was also Rare. I want to say Perfect Dark.
Yep, they were Perfect Dark.
I know that they were Gemini Force as well. Did they do the GoldenEye game? Yeah, they did.
Yep.
Yeah, they had.
So, like, I'm just saying though, dude, that's a fucking absolute titan from like the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s.
I mean, look at this. Super Nintendo, Donkey Kong Country, great game. GoldenEye, great game. Conker's Bad Fur Day, great game. Perfect Dark, let's see, Banjo-Kazooie, Diddy Kong Racing, like that one, Jet Force Gemini, Donkey Kong 64, Star Fox Adventures, we're not going to talk about that for the GameCube. That was kind of a mess.
Krazoa Palace!
Donkey Kong Country 2, Donkey Kong Country 3, like... Yeah, they had good games, especially like you said in the 80s and 90s, to where you do make a good point. Like Sony would be looking more for a smaller studio rather than the bigger studio. But I want to pivot from this conversation, Soapy, into the conversation that you brought up that we were originally going to talk about solely. And then I was like, hey, you know what? Bungie is looking to be acquired maybe, or Microsoft's looking to acquire them. Maybe we can talk about those rumors. But you brought up the question of like, hey, you know what? Might not have a lot of news today. And I was like, what is like a gaming topic that we haven't touched that you would want to touch that would be a good conversation? And your question was, how ambitious should games be? So basically, I'm going to pass it to you. I'm going to have you set this one up for where you want this conversation to go, since this is kind of your baby, your topic.
Okay. So what I was going for with saying, like, how ambitious the games have to be is I was going off the whole thought of where it was, I don't remember if it was yesterday's show or like a couple of shows ago. It was, we had said something about, like it was an ambitious title or something like that. And my whole thought process was just like, it popped into my head after that show of like, do we really need, like, how much ambition do we actually need? Because like we've seen in the past, like, ambitions helped a lot, but it's also, we've seen in the past, you don't need to be ambitious to make good games.
Yeah.
Because I'll bring up my first point. It's not the Metroid one that I told you about. Like Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, it's ambitious because of how big the game is, but like, It's not that ambitious when you compare to the fact that like it has really similar gameplay to GTA 5. It's basically just cowboy GTA 5.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, ambition goes into how much of a risk are you going to take? And when I played Red Dead 2, I don't know, like, there was not that I'm saying the story was bad, because I liked the story. It got me invested. There were parts that I was totally like, well, like, they got me to say fuck Micah a bunch of times. They've got me basically to quote the game nonstop with Dutch, one more score, Arthur, one more score. Also, how many times can we say, that's a good girl, or that's a good boy? But like, to me, I think of story. I'm a story guy. That's where I kind of like, that's my bread and butter. And to me, thinking of Red Dead, the story. Now, I didn't play Red Dead 1 coming into Red Dead 2, where apparently Red Dead 2 is a prequel to Red Dead 1. So I guess it didn't really matter. But like, for me, story-wise, there wasn't really anything too... like, they didn't take too many risks when it came to the story. Because, like, when it comes to stories and being ambitious, you kind of ride a fine line of, you gotta be, if you're gonna be ambitious, you gotta be the right amount of ambitious, because if you go over, you go into the other side to where then people go, all right, that's a little bit too much. That's a little too crazy. That's a little too out there, to where you fall into then disconnecting someone from your game.
Yeah. And that's kind of my point, to where I also can't figure out the title of that one game I was looking for, so that's a oof. Because that was going to tie more into the gameplay side of it.
Yeah.
But, because yeah, like with stories, I think the way that, with ambition and stories, like I always say, like it's kind of, you tackle like a controversial topic. Like, it's something that I always view as, as ambitious, is like, okay, you're willing to put yourself on the line to tell like this point of view of a story. For instance, Last of Us 2 is one of those.
Yeah.
And like there's other games like it, because I'm trying to think. What's it called? This is gonna fucking annoy me.
Will it?
Yes.
Because you're on a branch by yourself, big guy. I don't know what's going on in your head right now.
Oh, Outer Worlds. It's like Outer Worlds kind of tried to make an ambitious story, even though it's basically just fuck companies. Is the whole premise of the game.
Yeah.
And like, for instance, like it's not extreme. Like, it's not this out of the blue, like, oh my god, no one's ever thought of this idea before. Type of story or anything. Like, it's literally just like, hey, look at that, fuck corporations, man. Am I right? Everyone's like, yeah, man, fuck corporations. Corporations bad.
Yeah.
And like with that, it's not extremely ambitious, because it's like you're kind of touching on a topic, but with I'm trying to remember what it is. Like with certain things in games, not just overall story wise, because I'll use the Telltale Walking Dead games. It's ambitious to have the and it's gonna sound fucked when I say it, it's ambitious to have the option to kill Duck. Because the whole thing is like, that's a big fucking no in games.
Yeah.
Of like, no kids are meant to die. Like they're the safe ones in games, and then they instantly just hit you with the, no, Duck's going to die whether you want him to or not.
Yeah, I mean, for me, any of those choice games has the, like, are you going to go out on that kind of, on that olive branch? And are you going to make some, like, if I'm going to have a game, like a Telltale game, that's all about choices, that's how I'm going to get you in. Like, you got to make some of your choices, like, as it builds with the story, got to be impactful to be to point of, like, with that choice of, because you have 3 choices there. You can either, number one, well, 2 of them, Duck dies, where the first choice is you let his father kill him, which in itself is like, you go through the morality standpoint of like, okay, should the father be the one to kill him. Let's say you're like, okay, Duck needs to die. Should the father be the one to kill him? Or should you be the one to kill him? Because that's the two choices. Either you kill him or Kenny kills him. But then it's like the question before that, or like, do you just keep him alive? Or do you actually go ahead and kill him? Because like we see like with Michonne in the show when we first met her, she had, I want to say it was her husband and his brother, or her husband and her brother, as two walkers that were kind of like her pets almost, to where like she couldn't physically come to killing them because there's that attachment there. Like for you, the Duck thing was easy. You didn't like Duck, so okay, Duck needed to die. I don't know if did you kill Duck or did you let Kenny kill Duck?
The first time I did, and then my second time through, I wanted to see what would happen if I chose, if you chose Kenny. Because I think the third option is you tell Katja, Kenny's wife, to do it.
Okay.
Because I think that's the one where, I mean, I think she dies even if Kenny does it anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, for me, you mentioned, and I don't mean to go off of that, but like for me, you mentioned like a game, if a game is ambitious, it hits a controversial target. And I hope this is the game I'm thinking of, because there was a time in my life, I think it was around 2015. Was 2015 when like FNAF was like #1, was really getting big? When like Five Nights at Freddy's was starting to get popular? Well, around that time when Five Nights at Freddy's was getting popular, I found Markiplier's YouTube channel for the first time. And I was like, I would just binge watch his Five Nights videos, to where it's like, it was one of those things where for the first time I understood like how Dave is. Because like me and Dave talk about this all the time, where Dave goes, you know what, I'm not going to play the game, but I'll watch someone on Twitch play it. And like me, I'm on the other side. I'm like, you know what, if I'm going to like experience a game, I'm like, I'd rather play it for myself rather than watch someone else play the game. Especially if there's choices, because with me, I'd be like, choose that one. If they didn't choose it, I'd be like, oh, I got to go see it. I got to fucking choose it for myself. But point being, I'd watch all his Five Nights videos. We're not going to play the game myself, but I was like hooked on his videos. And when I started to branch out and I was like, okay, I'm going to watch other videos that he's done, I want to say the name of the game was Emporium, where the information I have here is Emporium is a short interactive game exploring notions of escapism, loss, and a fragmented sense of self in the wake of a personal tragedy. These pockets of distant clarity are a vain effort to find beauty, poetry, and reason in one's bleakest and most desperate moments. Emporium is a small game lasting roughly 30 to 40 minutes. It has a minimum approach to gameplay, focusing on visuals and audio to build visceral experience and sporadic dialogue choices leading to the narrative. And for me, I remember like one of the topics that game approached was suicide, where like something in the game happened where like there was like either one of the characters you were with or like your character yourself was kind of like, it dealt with suicide, to where it was like, okay, this is ambitious. Like in any of these games too, like there are other ones like oh fuck, what's the one that was really big, where it was like you were the little character and it was like a side scroller and you would like swim through water. I'll have to look up the name. But these games where the world is very big around you, it's a side scroller, but your character doesn't talk. Like Celeste would fit into this, where yes, there's dialogue in Celeste, but when the characters don't talk, you have to have something that gets your message across and pulls that person into the game. Like, those are the games that I think of when I think of ambition, to where it's like, we're going to let what's going on in this game and the style of it and the beauty of it, that's going to be the main focus, rather than a character talking, kind of telling you exactly how you should feel.
Yeah, and games like that, there was another one Mark played, and I don't remember exactly what it was called.
Yeah.
But it's like you're locked in like a solitary confinement cell.
Yes, a jail cell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, like that one's also ambitious. And it's because like I view it as like ambition in a game like that is like extremely obvious, because like those types of games are like hard to sell to people. Because obviously when you tell people like, oh, like there's minimal gameplay, people are gonna be like, so this is basically just an interactive movie. And then you see, like, when you play it, it's like, no, this is just them telling you a story. Like, this is just them telling you, like, this is what this is.
Yeah.
Because, and then it's, for instance, like, you have to basically, like, form, like, what you view of the world based off of, like, what's being presented to you.
Yeah. I'm looking for it right now, because, like, for me, there was...
I want to say, I think it was called, like, Solitary, I think is what it was called.
Not the one you were talking about, the other one. Because I remember that game. I watched, that was another one that I watched him play. Shit, no, this one, it was like something Fall. No, that's what it was. Inside. Inside was what it was called. Because that one was like, you're a little boy, it's a side scroller. Everything is like, the whole like screen is like the... What's the word I'm looking for? The setting was very dark. And the story that they had set up is kind of like a post-apocalypse, like where the machines have kind of taken over. And like, but the whole game, it was like, you experience things, your character passed by things that told you more and more about the world and kind of progressed a story, but your character didn't talk. Your character didn't talk at all. And for me, it's like, those games are unique. To me, they're unique, because how many games do you play nowadays where there's no dialogue at all? Where it's just like, I'm not talking about like a Nintendo game where they have the text instead of a dialogue, like an actual person talking, where you have to go off of the body motion of the character, the setting of where you are. You kind of have to focus about the things going on in the background, because that's where you're going to get your cues for the world that this game is in, the story, what is happening. And like, those games, I feel like, have to be ambitious, because you're taking away you're taking away something that easily could just progress the story. Where it's like, people talking is kind of like in movies when they use that dumb filler line of like, well, as you know, it's like, well, no, if I knew, I wouldn't be fucking watching the movie. Like, that's what talking does for me, to where it's like, it's so easy to just like, okay, the story can progress because you hear it and we can tell it to you, rather than having you use your investigative skills, your, what's the word I'm looking for? Not common sense, but like, not intuition.
Say like intuition, maybe.
Is it intuition? Because I almost thought about that too. So. Like, your intuition to pick up on things, rather than just listening and focusing on someone talking. Also
probably would be like perceptive as well.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. That. Like, you have to use that rather than, hey, I got to watch this person just talk and tell me what's going on.
Yeah, and games to where then, because also to go more to like the less ambitious side, like a lot of the times AAA titles don't have to be ambitious. Like, for instance, Rockstar could literally just make GTA 5 but Space Cowboy or some stupid thing, and then boom, just like that, it's still gonna sell. And like, obviously, you know, there is still the, like, telling a story in a game is still really useful, but I'm trying to figure out how to explain it.
Well, like, think of Nintendo. Mario doesn't have to be ambitious. Mario just has to be Mario.
Yeah,
I would say the same thing with
it's-
a Link game. Like, Link does not need to be ambitious. Just give the fan what they want in a Zelda game.
yeah, and that's where and that's kind of like where it's, it's, I feel games should, I've always viewed games as like here's like the casual side of it. Like, and that's where I say Nintendo has cornered that market. Because I'm going to be brutally honest, you don't need to know, like...
The less ambitious games?
Yeah, well, because I always say, like, more casual, and then, like, I don't want to say more hardcore, because then it sounds like I'm, like, excluding all the people who play, like, more casual games. Because, for instance, like, people dabble in both.
Yeah.
But, like, I say Nintendo games are more of, like, the casual ones of, like, you don't have to invest a lot of time into it to understand anything. Like, it's a game you just pick up and play, like Mario.
Yeah.
I don't need to know, like, some super fucking deep lore story about Mario and how he became a plumber.
You don't need to know
Just
about Bowsette, baby?
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I'll still never figure out how Luigi owns a mansion as a plumber, but,
Luigi's mansion.
But, like, that's more like a casual thing of where it's just, I'll pick up and play. And then I say the more hardcore ones are the ones where you start getting into the more ambitious games.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave, plumbers do make bank, but I don't know if plumbers make enough bank to buy a mansion that big.
I don't know. Like, for me, though, I'm starting to think maybe that's why when it came to Nintendo games, like, Nintendo games haven't been, like, if you ask me, like, oh, the best game I've ever played, or the best games I've ever played over my life, like, usually they're not a lot of Nintendo games. And I'll be honest, like, there are people out there that have an attachment to Nintendo, but to me, I'm now thinking about it, and it's more of they love the character. They love Mario. They love Link. They love the Smash Bros. Like, but none of that is really, like, Smash Bros. Went a little bit ambitious, I would say, with their Smash Bros. Ultimate having, like, that, the, like, conquest map that they have, to where it's like you go through and you walk through a big map, and, like, that's how you go ahead and unlock some of the fighters, is through that way. It's like, okay, that's ambitious. Like, they were actually being ambitious, but with their gameplay. But, like, when it comes to story or anything, it's like, you're right, I don't need to know much about Mario. I just need to know he's an Italian plumber, and boom, I'm in the game. This big turtle dragon is Bowser. Okay, that's his enemy. Like, that's really all you have to know heading into that. Whereas I think of other games on, like, Xbox, PC, PlayStation, those ones can tell more stories, but at the same time, I'm starting to think of, like, how many big AAA games have I played that have really been like, all right, we're going to be super ambitious. Like, the thing I want to ask you, and this is a question because, yes, I'm behind the 8 ball by like a year, and I need to play it to get a thought of my own about this, but I'll ask you, Soapy, is most of the people that have had a problem with The Last of Us 2, is that because story-wise or the concept-wise with Laura's character, was it just Naughty Dog trying to be too ambitious and it didn't jive with people like they thought it would?
It's a mixture of bad writing and ambition, because for instance, one of the things they already showed in The Last of Us 1's DLC, Ellie is lesbian. She has a girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, they showed us that in the it was the Game Awards. Because that was the Game Awards where they, like, took us to different settings, and for the PlayStation one, they were, like, out in a little fucking tent thing that you would, like, have a wedding in with lights, and it was like Ellie dancing with her, and then they kiss, and everyone's like, "Whoa, Ellie's lesbian!" Like, didn't expect that.
Yeah, and like, for instance, they have that, which that's not even the most controversial part. It's one of the main things with Laura's character, and this is the only, like, bit I'll give you about it.
Okay.
It mainly talks about masculinity in women. Because, for instance, a lot of people, like, when people first saw the player model, that's what started one of the rumors, and that's what got a lot of people pissed off.
Okay.
Because they were like, if that's actually a thing that's dumb, which I don't remember if it was confirmed in the game or not.
Okay.
But it's stuff like that really, like, bringing concepts like that into gaming is fine because you're starting to normalize it.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's also kind of a weird thing of like, they tried to tell a story from two perspectives and tried to paint both as a villain, but you side more with Ellie because you know Ellie's story.
Which,
I'm gonna be brutal.
I mean, that leads us, I don't mean to cut you off, but like, that leads us to a conversation that you, Tim, Sean, and myself had in our Discord during one of our watch-alongs. Not about gaming, but from the wrestling part, and it's all stories, so that's how it relates, of when you... So we were talking about Bayley and Sasha, right?
Yeah.
And I was kind of...
I remember this.
I was kind of pitching my early ideas, because one of the ideas I am going to do it as a video on the YouTube channel. The only thing I am waiting for is I want WWE to finish the Sasha Bayley thing. I want to see how it ends. So, like, I don't want to put out a video, hey, this is how I would do it, and then they end up, like, redeeming themselves in a way. I want it to be over before I go, okay, this is what I would do. And I'm starting to, like, come up with how I would have wrote the heel turn into the Sasha feud. And the one thing that I brought up is, like, having both characters be bad guys, have both of them be heels. And one of the things that kept coming up in that conversation is it's really hard to have two bad guys because usually in a story, it's like, okay, if I'm a person, who do I side with? Usually there's a person in the story where it's like, now does it happen all the time where it's like, you're supposed to side with this person, cheer them. Okay, you're supposed to side with this person, feel for them. No, sometimes it happens to where something doesn't jive and you're like, no, I don't side with that person like you want me to. When you're trying to paint two characters as villains, it's really hard then for a person to go, well, should I care about both of them? Should I not care about either of them? And like in The Last of Us, the thing that I would say is if you're going to paint Ellie and Laura's character as villains, of course people are going to side with Ellie because we already have that connection to her from the first game.
Yeah. And that's exactly where the problem with Last of Us 2 started. Because they tried to make you side with Laura's character. I'm mostly avoiding the name just because I don't know if you saw leaks for it or anything.
Did not, so thank you for that.
Okay. Yeah. That's why I'm avoiding saying the name.
Fuck it, I'll play the game this weekend just for you, Soapy.
Alright.
Soapy's like, yeah, you say that and then you won't.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many times have I heard, I'm going to play it. It's at the top of my list, I'm going to play it.
Oh, man. I'll play it this weekend, I promise. Dad.
Alright, never thought I wanted to hear someone call me dad before, but okay. But, and that's kind of where I feel the ambition is something that if it was worked into the series a little bit more, before just fucking throwing us to the deep end,
yeah,
is where it would have been. Because, for instance, within like 30 minutes of playing the game, you're already playing as Laura's character.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, why the fuck am I doing this? I don't want to do this. I don't care about this character.
Like, I want to play as Ellie.
Yeah, I want to play as Ellie and Joel. I want to be on their side because I know them. Don't just throw me in the fucking deep end. Because I get it.
Like, there's a part of me too that's like, there's a part of me too that's almost to the point of like, oh, how do I want to put this? Of you can do that and like have a different character. It's just like you said, if the writing was bad, that's probably why it didn't work. Like if the writing was better, maybe it would have worked towards like, okay, this is the reason why you are having me play as this character right now.
Yeah. And it's just the way they went about introducing Laura's character is what is so fucking, like, not traumatizing, but, like, just, like, jarring is because the fact that literally it's Like everything you see in the trailer is, oh, you're playing as Ellie. It's Ellie, 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 and then just literally the first time you boot up the game, you're a different character. You're not Ellie.
Yeah. Well, it's like even the thing they showed at the Game Awards during that thing after the cinematic was gameplay of you as Ellie, showing that like, oh, the combat's similar. Like, okay, it looks like it's going to be a Last of Us game. But yeah, like, ambition's a tricky thing. Like, it's good for games to be ambitious. I don't want, like, obviously nobody wants games to be all cookie cutter to where they're all the same. For me, though, I kind of, like I said, I lean on that story-wise. I like games that take the ambitious route in a story. And if you can go on a ledge, you can do something and make me feel raw emotion, you've completely won me over. Like, shit, I want to even bring up Days Gone, but like, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played it. Fuck. Yeah, I'm not going, like, I got, you know what I have to do, Soapy? You know what I have to do? I have to make a PNG that basically says like spoilers, and it goes up in the top in the blank area so that people on Twitch know that I'm talking about spoilers. So I'm not going to do it then. I'm not going to spoil it. But basically, Days Gone, there was something that happened in the story where it was like the whole entire game they got you to feel for Deacon and his backstory. And then it was like towards the middle of Act 2, end of Act 2 into Act 3. Basically, it's like they shock you and you're like, oh my God, that's awesome. And then it like all those emotions that you were feeling because you feel them through Deacon come rushing out because of this huge surprise, this huge reveal that they have. But is there anything that you think you haven't mentioned that you think we should in this conversation before we start to kind of wrap things up?
I was just gonna bring up like an idea that for me, ambition is something that like you tackle something that like is kind of like not like some. I mean, and I already kind of brought this up a little bit with the Walking Dead thing.
Yeah.
But like I'm gonna tie it more into an example of just a series in total with BioShock.
Okay.
BioShock's whole thing, like BioShock is an ambitious ass game because it tackles a lot of topics that like people aren't like afraid to talk about. But like for instance, you see the varying different like throughout the 3 games, you see like different views on life. Yeah. For instance, Andrew Ryan is basically like if you consider him, he counts as like the communist of the 3, of where like he's the, you know, everyone's in, or not so much, actually not communist, he's more socialist. Like, he's like the extreme socialist of like, you earn everything you get, but he's also like a weird in between. It's fucking weird. I don't know how to explain it. Of where like Andrew Ryan has the quote, is a man not entitled to swim
would him and
around.
Bernie Sanders get along if he's extreme socialism? Because you know that's what people like to say. Bernie Sanders socialism.
I mean, you know, I don't think so. Mostly because Andrew Ryan was basically like, "Hey, man, there's no restrictions on anything," and that's why there's fucking genetic freaks living under the ocean.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
But yeah, it's basically Andrew Ryan has the, you know, you're allowed to do whatever you want to do, and then you get to when they show Columbia, it's a complete fucking opposite.
Yeah.
Of like, no, you live by this set of rules, you do this, you worship this, like this is what you do. And BioShock 2 acts as the in between of like, hey, we're here,
we're right here, buddy. Come play here.
Yeah, and it's like even things inside of it, because for instance, you know, it's with BioShock 1 when they tie in the whole thing of like, oh, you know, you can do whatever you want, believe whatever you want. And then you see with Infinite, the first thing you're basically hammered over the fucking head with like 2 seconds into the game, besides the lighthouse and getting ear raped by the lighthouse, is you literally wake up inside of a church.
Yeah.
And like, it's Columbia's like the physical embodiment of nationalism. Of where it's like you have so much pride in your nation that like they worship the founding fathers like gods.
Yeah. No, that was it. Yeah.
To where Yeah, because then with Bioshock 1, they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like, some people in Rapture don't even know who Andrew Ryan is.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who founded the city. They're just like, who?
Yeah. Who is
I don't know
this?
who that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it just, like, it's the complete opposites, because also it's an allegory. Bioshock in total is just a whole allegory for basically heaven and hell.
Yep.
And, like, to show both suck.
Yeah, whereas
Like,
Rapture's
obviously,
the hell,
yeah,
Columbia's
Rapture's
the
hell.
heaven.
Yeah. And then just everything in between's limbo.
So would the big boys be demons, or would the little girls be demons?
Both.
Both? I mean...
Yeah. Well, it's because the whole thing is, it's based on, like, a very specific style of Christianity.
Okay.
I don't think it's like, I don't remember what fucking branch it's based off of. But it's basically,
is it paganism? Like...
No, paganism is you don't believe in God. Pagans...
No, it's not. Is it Protestant? It's not Protestants.
I think. I don't remember. All I know is it's based on some type of Christianity of where, like, it's basically, or just based on, like, religion in general, where they're like, believe this, you go here.
Yeah.
That's good place.
Mm-hmm.
But then they also shows, hey, those people that you guys perceive as good, they're also shit people too. Because, for instance, in Colombia, like, 10 minutes in, they try to have you hit someone, like, try to have you hit someone with a baseball because it's an interracial couple.
Yeah.
So, like, that. I think it's... Yeah, and, like, obviously some people may not view that as, like, ambitious because they'll just be like, oh, you know, that's just them telling a story.
I think if you tackle race, if you tackle suicide, if you tackle, like, Tell Me Why, where I would even say before playing that is ambitious just because they are tackling the side of transgender transgender character in a video game. And tackling that side of the story to where it's like when you are dealing with those sensitive subjects, if you can write it well, like that's good ambition. That yet again for me that fits because what do I focus on mostly? The score.
Yeah. And because then, and I guess if I would just want to briefly touch on the gameplay thing.
Go ahead.
My whole thing is just, dude, if your game has been the same for like 10 years, you gotta switch it up somehow. Like, don't go out and reinvent the wheel, but like, don't just make it the stone wheel. You know, make it a different wheel.
Yeah,
make it a wooden wheel or something. Who knows?
No, yeah,
because I'm trying
to get it.
Because like I'm gonna point this out. For instance, it was because I can use Borderlands for this one. It was Borderlands 3. Like every Borderlands game has the exact same gameplay. Mm-hmm. It's literally just, for instance, like they slowly got better, so they don't need to be ambitious with that. Mm-hmm. Because it's just congratulations, boom. It's slowly getting better. Mm-hmm. But like for instance, like I will never expect Call of Duty to have like a complete fucking overhaul of gameplay.
No, because it's Call of Duty.
They kind of had one a little bit because your health doesn't auto regenerate anymore.
Oh, it doesn't? I thought that was just a hardcore thing.
No. That's an actual thing in the game now. Like, you have to basically use a healing shit to actually heal yourself now. Yeah, which, like, I wouldn't be like, oh, dude, that's the most advanced thing I've ever seen. Battlefield did that for, like, 15 years before. But...
Yeah, but Battlefield was always the more realistic.
Yeah. But... And then just for gameplay, I couldn't find the fucking game. Mm-hmm. And it annoys me. Because unless if I'm just dumb and heard one person say the game was bad and thought everyone thought it was bad.
Yeah.
But, like, when you have someone jump from... Like, it was the Metroid example of where it was... It went from a 2D side-scroller to a first-person shooter. Mm-hmm. Like, that's fucking... Like, that is jarring. Like, that is ambition of, like, we are changing the entire genre of this game.
Would you say
and hoping to God.
Would you say, then, that Super Mario 64 was ambitious in that sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was one of the first 3D games. Like,
well, and plus it took Mario from a 2D place to a 3D place, and now it's like, now we don't even think about it, because like Sunshine, Odyssey, like they're all 3D. They've kind of combined the 2D side-scrolling aspects with the 3D open worldness, kind of like what Crash is doing a bit, but like Super Mario 64 was like, shit, we are taking something that's been 2D only, and now we're putting it in a 3D space.
Yeah, and like, ambition like that is fine, because honestly, I think gameplay-wise, we won't see a lot more of it. And it's just because, like, games are kind of finding that niche, like, of what they fit into.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, Borderlands gameplay will always feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, for instance, like, it's not ambitious that they added mantling and sliding.
Yeah.
That shit people wanted. Well, maybe not so much sliding, but, like, people were like, fuck, I don't want to have to just grenade jump everywhere.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I can't remember the last time we saw, like, super ambitious, like, gameplay changes. Because
would you count Breath of the Wild? With the like, or is that just like, oh, you made the map bigger?
Yeah, I mean, like, that one can count, but it's one of those things of where it's like the gameplay has to change if you make that style of game.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, because its combat is insanely different than like Twilight Princess and games like that. It's just like fundamental things in the game of like, I don't know if we ever had crafting or anything like that in the games. Or like we never had like cooked or anything.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes a train. Give me a second.
Soapy's like, oh, gotta block it for the train. But yeah, like Zelda between like Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, like if you're gonna go from that top-down 2D to open world, of course, like things need to be different. But like, I was just thinking from Ocarina of Time to Breath of the Wild, was it just we made the map bigger, and it's like, okay, that shouldn't be looked at as being ambitious?
Well, no, I mean, there were fundamental gameplay changes, and like, if you noticed, it's mainly Nintendo that does the ambitious shit. But it's also because Nintendo kind of knows that like they could fuck up a game and people would still love it because it's Nintendo.
Yeah, because they have, with Nintendo, it's more about the connection to the characters than anything else.
Yeah, like, I'm trying to think of any other one outside of it. Because, like, I almost said Fallout, but I don't count that one, and that's because an entire different company took over.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I mean, if you want to count Fallout 4 as ambitious, the only thing that's ambitious about it is that they added the settlement building system. Like, that's really the only, like, thing that no one expected. Otherwise, it was like we kind of expected gunplay to get better because that was Bethesda's first ever shooter. I'm trying to think of other examples. I mean, obviously, there's probably big ones, and someone out there's probably like, Brandon, you actual fucking idiot.
I love that voice.
They're gonna fucking pull one of those out on me.
Yeah, because I think the bottom line is just everything we've talked about, where it's, you gotta go out on a ledge, and it's like, it's not bad to be ambitious, but like, don't just try to be ambitious just for ambitious sake. Like, you have to have it match into it. You have to have a reason for, like, if you're gonna be ambitious, this is why, and it connects to the game or the story in this way.
Yeah, and because my whole thing is, I would even say, like, you don't have to make your game ambitious. Because, like, sometimes it's better to play your game safe.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's what your players want. But I do understand that sometimes game developers gaming is an art. Like, I should say game development is an art, to where it's like, ambition can be in any art. Like, musicians can be ambitious. Filmmakers can be ambitious. Like, movie makers can be ambitious to the point where it's like, if I want to take this stab, I want to be this ambitious, let me go ahead and go with it. Yeah,
and because the example I was going to use of where, like, some people may view it as ambitious, but it's really not, is, like, the creation of Overwatch. Where some people, like, the whole reason why, like, I say that, like, some people may think it's ambitious is because they never played TF2 and don't know that Overwatch is basically an exact fucking clone.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know. I've never seen Overwatch as ambitious, though.
Yeah, well, I think it's more or less of, with them, it's like they built characters and they try to tell you, like, oh, they have these stories, and like,
I think the ambitious part about it is having a story behind your characters, have the fan base know the story and care about the story without a campaign mode or without a single player mode or without any of that, just through announcements and cinematics. But yet again, what does Blizzard do really well? Cinematics.
Yeah. Well, because then I also would say, I think Metal Gear is a really ambitious series.
Mm-hmm.
That's also just because, dude, when your fucking story is more confusing than Legend of Zelda's timeline, and that's just one Metal Gear game. Because I'm just saying, when I played the Phantom Pain, for like the first 2 hours, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Second, they started introducing like paranormal shit. That's when I'm like, okay, you guys lost me. I have no idea where the fuck I'm at anymore.
That's in the Games of the Generation thing on PlayStation. Should I buy that Phantom Pain?
It's pretty good.
Is that the best Metal Gear game?
No.
Okay.
Well, some people may think it. In my personal opinion, it's not. But that's also just because I never beat it either. So I may have like the bias of like I never wanted to finish it. Like I probably would look into it before you buy it, just so you can see like the type of gameplay it has.
I played Metal Gear. I've just never beaten a Metal Gear game. But yet again,
Phantom Pain plays a lot different than the rest of them, though. That's the thing.
Okay, yeah. Last time I played like a Metal Gear game though, as a kid. So like I mentioned earlier, this week, it was one of those things where it's like, played as a kid, okay, I can't beat this, come back as an adult. Okay, now I have like the skills or the kind of like the drive to beat it also. Where it's not just like as a kid where it's like, this is hard. All right, next game.
Yeah, I mean that's really all I gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and it's kind of like I think there's times when companies are ambitious. Like there almost seems to be like time periods.
Yeah.
Of when they are. Of where like for instance when gaming was first starting, obviously everything was ambitious. No one fucking knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
You know, and it was the Wild West.
Yeah, let's pay.
And then once everything got more established. Yeah, and then once everything started getting more established, people started playing it more safe. They're like, all right, whatever. We have a fan base. We know this fan base will buy our game.
Yeah.
And then it was like now, obviously, every once in a while we get an ambitious title.
Mm-hmm.
But like in between, it's kind of like, like these aren't really ambitious. These are just kind of like, not cookie cutter, but like you can tell, like, okay, this studio made it.
Yeah.
Because it feels like this studio game.
Yeah, it's just
because like for instance with because I would like Bandai Namco or Namco, they're the ones who made Dark Souls and Bloodborne.
Mm-hmm.
If you play Bloodborne, you know you're playing a Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
So like I think it's just one of those things of I can't wait until we see another ambitious period, but at the same time, I also do stand on the stance of like I'm kind of okay where gaming's at right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, microtransactions are running just a little rampant.
Hey man, at least we're not like that. Used to be like 2 years ago. Every fucking story around now was like, microtransactions, are they good, are they bad, are they gonna be banned, what's next for Overwatch? Stay tuned. At least we don't have to talk about those fucking things anymore. We can understand that.
Still kind of talk about.
We could talk about microtransactions being bad and how it's kind of a form of gambling. But at least it's kind of like it's still there, but it's died down a little bit. But that is going to do it for MVP Games Live today. I want to thank you guys for checking out the show. Make sure to, like I said, follow us on Twitch. We're here every Monday through Friday, twitch.tv/MVP Vids. We're also on YouTube at MVP Entertainment. If you want to support us, patreon.com/MVP Vids is one of the ways. You can also throw us a sub on Twitch and get the same rewards as a bronze level patron. Also, thank you to our Patreon sponsors, Pat Hill and Philly Sean. We also have a Discord. Please join it. It's a great time. Link down below in the description, or you can ! Discord if you are in Twitch chat right now, and it'll give you the link and you can join it today. Get in on that Discord action. That's going to do it for Soapy and I for this week. We'll be back Monday with more gaming news on Twitch. Dave and I are coming up next for a jam-packed Football Friday on MVP Sports Live. But as always, have a good day, everybody.
Bye.